Hi, and welcome to Pepper Content Presents Top of the Funnel, the show where content conversations begin. I'm your host, Natasha Puri, the content marketing lead at Pepper, and our guest today is someone whose CV boasts experience across FMCG, digital payments, fashion, and most recently, health insurance. No, I'm not talking about multiple people. I'm talking about the one and only Sneha Beriwal, the head of marketing at Aditya Birla Health Insurance. From Nestle to Dabur and now the Aditya Birla Group, today we dive into Sneha's career as a marketer and how the role of content has changed in all these years. Hi Sneha, welcome to the show.
Hi, Natasha. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. Great to be speaking to you.
Yeah, I'm so glad we were able to finally schedule this after a lot of back and forth.
Yes. Hope you're keeping safe and everything's good at your end.
Yeah, I mean, as safe as one can be right now, I guess. So I'll start from the beginning itself. I'd love for you to talk about your journey as a marketer. So, outline these transitions for me. Tell me about your journey across these different industries. And finally, what is your present day role at ABHI?
Right. So, Natasha, I always feel that I've been very fortunate. I've had a very diverse career, which always presents a lot of learning opportunities with itself. I started my marketing career in FMCG, and I've been brands like Nestle and then Dabur. I was also lucky that I got a chance to go outside India and work for about 5 years. Uh, of course, when you work in a different geography, you're learning you learn different skills, right? And the few good things that I learned was the West is quite obsessed with design aesthetics and minimalism. And at the time when I learned it, it was still new in India, right? But a lot of Indian design sensibilities is now catching up to it. So I feel quite privileged to have had the opportunity to see and learn that firsthand. Um, from FMCG, I moved back to India. I've been with the Aditya Birla Group for about 4 years now. And it's been a wonderful experience because I've actually got the opportunity to work across multiple businesses. I joined them in a digital payments business. I then went on to head a brand for one of our largest retail brands, which is Pantaloons. And as you said, most recently, I now head consumer marketing for Aditya Birla Health Insurance. It's a part of our Aditya Birla Capital banner. We are one of the six standalone health insurance players in the country. We are the youngest, one of the fastest growing. And it's been an exciting journey. If I have to talk about my transition, my career transition, and how things have moved, um, and this is a question that I ask myself retrospectively is when you move across industries, how does it really work, right? And I think one thing I've realized is that if you keep the consumer at the core of your thinking, right, and if you keep your marketing principles intact, then scalability across industries is really not a challenge. You just need to have that open mindset that yes, when you go into a new industry, there will be new learnings. Be open to learning it. I also sometimes feel you're able to solve some of the problems better because you have such a diverse range of solutions that you've seen over your career, right? And of course, I am a curious person, and I think that the switch across industries, the wide opportunity that I've been privileged to work on, just keeps me curious, keeps me motivated, keeps me going. So that's what my journey as a marketer has been.
So, if I were to ask you, how have you seen the role of content change in all these years, and across these sectors, right? What would you say about that?
Right. So if I have to look at content throughout my career, right, I basically put it into four broad buckets. There was a time when content was all about crisp storytelling because the format available to you was a 30-second TV ad, right? Which means you had to set very sharp, you had to always tell very sharp stories and very quickly and get to the point, right? Uh, then, as digital started evolving, suddenly this constraint of 30-second went away. And we started seeing a lot of long story formats, right? Where people were doing more detailed stories, more heartwarming, more hard hitting, right? So suddenly the canvas for storytelling through content really opened up, right? That was the onset of your digital era. Then came a time where just good story was not good enough. It needed some sort of a platform innovation as well, right? And this is when your 3Ds and ARs and VRs and thumb stoppers and your knock knock videos and all of these came into the play, right? And I feel now we are in an era where content is trying very, very hard, Natasha, not to look like content, right? And I say that has germinated in the birth of this influencer marketing, endorser marketing, right? The way I see it is when content is trying very, very hard not to be content, right? It's trying to disguise itself as an advertorial or something else, but not come across as a branded content. Now, this is all your influencer marketing, your partnerships, so on and so forth. And it's very interesting because if you see from trying to tell the brand's point of view, now it's all about hearing the influencers or the endorsers' point of view on the brand, right? So the narrative of content, at least over the span of my career, has changed significantly in my view.
And I think that also overlaps with how the customer has changed. The consumer is so much more well informed that now you can't, they're seeking out more information, which is usable, which is shareable, which actually adds value to them. So I think it kind of overlaps with that as well. And, on that same thread, I just want to understand from you, like within now, if we get into specifically health insurance as an industry, right? The consumer has changed. There is so much information available. And yet it is one of those black holes where, there is a lot of information, but there is not a lot of information presented in an interesting or engaging manner. So can you throw light on the role of content specifically in this industry, and what is ABHI doing along, creating educational content, or what is your content strategy overall?
Right. Yes, you've said it right, and it's not a problem specific to health insurance. I think BFSI as a category has not been in line with the overall speed at which content has evolved in our world, right? Part of the reason is because it's a slightly complex category. Some of the terms and some of the concepts are not as easy as it is in, let's say, in FMCG or retail or fashion, right? So of course, need for content is even higher. I feel the brands are catching up. We at ABHI, for us, content is a very important pillar at what we do, right? Because we believe in keeping customers at the heart of everything that we do. And when you think from that philosophy, your communication and your content has to come from a space that adds value to the lives of the customer. Health and insurance, both are unfortunately a very low mindshare categories in this country, right? Everybody's thinking about health. Nobody's really doing a lot about it. Insurance in itself is a very low mindshare category. So our biggest challenge is that we are dealing with two words that doesn't create a lot of automatic pull. And that's why the job of content to create that pull is even higher. Some of the things that we try to do differently is we invest in a lot of blog and community content, because we feel that health is tricky, because even though it's an individual journey, having company is always something that motivates people, right? So our blog, our community, our interest group, that's a big pillar of content that we drive at ABHI. Apart from that, we try within the realms of regulation, we try to simplify our product communication, whether it's through, we do a lot of explainer videos, right? We do a lot of app understanding videos. We do a lot of did you know series, right? We try to simplify the jargons around insurance, like I said, to the extent possible in the realms of the regulatory constraints that we operate in. And more importantly, we focus a lot on creating topical content, because if you are able to catch a customer in the right moment with the right message, even though they may not buy your product or engage with your product then and there, at least you've managed to make a space in their head whenever they think about health insurance. So I think being topical, so whether it's about having a sending out do's and don'ts on the recent cyclone that we've had, right? Or even just setting up a helpline that can help answer questions around vaccination do's and don'ts, right? Or when COVID happened, what were some of the workout from home ideas that people could try when they were locked up at home? So we create a lot of content from that perspective, which is always relevant to the customer, may or may not have an immediate sales plug. But we believe that if you're engaging with the right conversation with the right larger audience, whenever they're thinking of insurance, they will think of us as the top brand of choice.
So very interesting. I want to kind of, deep dive into some of the things that you mentioned here. So you just talked about content not being possibly very sales centric or driving sales, that as the end sort of game here, but educational, right? Useful.
Yes.
You want to be top of the mind when people are thinking of insurance. So from that, I would like to ask you, and this is something very common across the board when it comes to content marketing, the ROI and metrics related to content, right? It's very difficult to map those effectively. I mean, it's a challenge. It can be done. It's a challenge. And it's also a challenge that has sort of evolved over a period of time, because now businesses demand more out of content also. So they want to map, what is the result, what are we seeing, what is the traction, etc. So my question to you is, what are those certain metrics that are important to you in the business? And secondly, you spoke about the blog and community piece. So again, within that, what are the metrics you're looking at? What are you hoping to drive out of that huge piece of content that you are creating at scale?
Okay, so I'll answer your first question first. Of course, calculating ROI only from content is a tricky bit, like you correctly said. But there are some larger marketing KPIs that we track, and we believe that content plays an important role in that. The one KPI where content plays a good role is your organic search, right? Because a lot of your organic volume comes from the fact that people have seen the so-called educational content that we're putting out. And that is why we have a certain mind share, which is drawing people to search for us, right? So organic search is a big is a big driver. We also look at the kind of engagement that our content gets, especially when we put it out on the social media. So what are the kind of questions people are asking? What are the kind of likes, comments, shares that we are getting? That's the second KPI to track. The third KPI, while it's not directly correlated, so whenever we put out a big piece of content or campaign, we make sure we try to do some sort of brand lift study either on YouTube or Facebook. So that gives us some immediate output from the campaign saying that, yes, has this given us a brand lift? That's something that we try to track whenever possible. We do run a brand track. So over time, we also see the impact of all the communication being put out on the positive rub of the brand in terms of consideration, awareness, etc. Ours is, we are also a very on-ground heavy business, because a lot of insurance is ultimately sold by the agent who's out there, right? So for us, we are lucky because there is a constant feedback mechanism that we get from the field saying, this is working, this is not working, people are understanding this, people are not understanding this, right? Or people are interested in this and people are not interested in this. So by the virtue of our distribution ecosystem, we are quite lucky to have that constant feedback mechanism being fed into us. And those are some of the broad 4-5 indicators that we track, Natasha. Putting a dollar ROI to every dollar of content is tricky. And I think if we start focusing too much on the dollar ROI of content, it will somewhere cripple the creativity that content can bring to the business. So we try to be a bit pragmatic and balanced about it. But yes, of course, we are a business, so we do track these broad KPIs to make sure that we are headed in the right direction. Yeah. Then I'll move to your second question, which was when we invest in community and blog, how do we look at that, right? So when it comes to community and blog, engagement is the largest KPI that we track, right? Engagement can be in terms of repeat visitors. It can be in terms of people who subscribe to it. It can be in terms of time spent or content consumed per person, number of content consumed per person, the kind of questions that I'm getting. These are all the your typical content KPIs that we track for our blog and uh, interest groups and communities. However, at the back of our heads, we are also looking at how many of these, the so-called traffic is converting into customers. May not be immediate, but over time. So we do track that with a bit of a lag, as a lag metric. And over time, we also want to start thinking of new ideas in which we will start using this big group or community that we have built, not just as customers, but also as our advocates. Because if these people are engaged with the brand, they are great brand ambassadors to go out there and talk about, how the educational content is that we're putting out is useful, it's helpful. So that's the plan. And yeah, that's how we look at community and interest groups.
So, if you can expand a bit on how your team is structured. So, I would like to understand in the overall marketing landscape, what is your content pillar like, and how is the marketing team overall at ABHI structured under you?
Okay, so let me actually zoom out of this question and let's not make it about how my team is structured. I'll tell you how I think marketing teams should be structured. And of course, we are also structured like that, right? The way I look at it is a marketing team has a foundation, it has a roof, and it has three pillars, correct? The three pillars is how do you inform the customer, how do you acquire the customer, and then how do you engage with the customer, right? Now, different businesses call them by different names, but predominantly the three pillars should be doing these three things, correct? Inform is basically awareness, driving top of mind, things like that. Acquire is a more targeted, focused function, which talks about sales here and now. This can be in terms of channel visibility. This can be in terms of performance marketing for a digital product and so on and so forth. And then, of course, there is engage, which can mean different things for different businesses. For us, engagement means renewals. But when I was in the retail business, engagement means repeat customer visits. How many times does a customer visit my shop? In FMCG, it's share of household basket, right? So different businesses mean different things, but engage is the third pillar. The foundation that I think every marketing team should have is content. Because whether you are informing, acquiring, or engaging, every function needs to have very strong content understanding. And the roof that I think marketing teams need to have is the breadth of mediums that are available. So whether it's TV, radio, digital, in-store visibility, whatever, right? I call that as the roof because that then sort of binds all of this together and ultimately brings it to the customer, right? So the foundation is something that, so if you see a house, right, you never see the foundation, but you know it's there, it's underlying, and it's evident in everything that you see about the house. But it's the roof that as an outsider, as a consumer, you will be most exposed to. And that's why I put content as the foundation and I put the choice of mediums or medias as the roof of the structure. So in my view, this is how every marketing team should be structured. And our structure is more or less in the same space. We're not very different.
No, that's a great visual actually to have it. Really simplifies things. So thanks for sharing that with us. Now with the pandemic, how has the sort of role of content and the demands from content changed? Have they at all? I mean, or has it kind of made you introspect that we need to go big, or change our approach in any way? So how has how has the pandemic essentially impacted how you're using content and how you're doing your campaigns?
Right. So, of course, the pandemic has changed a lot of things. Health insurance in this country was always a push category. For the first time, the category is seeing some pull interest, right? So that's a big shift that's happening in the external world. The other landscape change that's happened is that people are a lot more comfortable with digital, right? So as brands, we can put out a lot more digital content and reach a larger number of people that we were not able to do before. Because in India, whenever you wanted to build reach for your business, your options were TV, outdoor, radio, print, so on and so forth, right? I think that dependency is now less. When you can reach more people digitally, what also happens is that you can put a wide variety of messages or content out there. It doesn't have to be as singular as this month, this is my campaign, and this is the only message that I'm going to drive, right? So, from that perspective, I think the pandemic has really opened up opportunities. We were fortunate because we already had a pretty strong digital and content setup, so we were able to scale up very quickly. All the pull demand that we are seeing for the category, we are able to service those because we have a lot of ready educational information that's available, and we're churning out new educational information pretty much every week, right? The pandemic has also added a lot of health words to people's vocabulary, right? Things like immunity, right? Comorbidity. Now, these were words that people did not know, and these words are very essential for an insurance brand. So we are lucky. We sort of, there is riding awareness about the category itself. And of course, as a leading brand, we are putting content out there, which is sort of answering these questions that people are having. And that is a great plug for us to start pitching our brand as a very solution oriented brand, and helping people sort of understand these complexity of the current situation. So one insight that became very clear, we realized it pretty early in the pandemic, is that unfortunately the pandemic led to a lot of job losses, right? A lot of salaried segment in this country, for them, health insurance is employer health insurance, right? Because my corporate gives me an insurance. Now, suddenly what happened in the pandemic is that if you were unfortunate and if you lost your job, you were not just without loss of income, you were also without loss of a health cover. Sorry, you were also at loss of a health cover, correct? So it was almost a double hit, and a lot of people didn't realize it till it happened, correct? We noticed that insight and we used that as an opportunity. We launched a campaign which we called as Khud Ka Health Insurance. It was very specifically targeted to the salaried segment, saying don't be comfortable in this cover of corporate ka insurance hai, right? Having your own health insurance is important because job ho na ho, apna health insurance apna rahega, right? The other thing that the pandemic exposed is that most people don't even realize that their corporate covers are mostly 3 to 5 lakh rupees. That's the amount they cover, right? If you've heard the stories around COVID hospitalizations for a family, 3 lakh is nothing, right? Which means a lot of your saving will get wiped out if, unfortunately, even 2 members of the family get hospitalized during COVID, right? So it was not just so that there were 2 plugs to this campaign that we put out. One is about ownership of your own health insurance, and the second was also about adequacy of your insurance. Is 3 lakh enough? And will you even have this 3 lakh tomorrow if you don't have your job, right? So that was one campaign that we put out, Khud Ka Health Insurance. We've seen some good response and great success on that. Our first point of feedback is always our on-ground distribution team, right? Because they give us the feel of the market and the consumer very, very quickly. Of course, there are trackable KPIs that we track. So we see percentage jump in the product purchase for the particular product that we are promoting with that campaign. So that's something we track, and we've seen great uplift in both of these campaigns. Second is my video views, because whenever campaigns have video assets, then video views and video reach and video engagement becomes an important KPI. We also drive a lot of partnerships in our campaigns where we are using different platforms to drive leads or traffic to my website. And that ends up becoming an important KPI. And not just lead, we actually track the whole funnel in terms of lead, visit to lead, lead to inquiry, inquiry to conversion. And if they didn't convert, what was the reason, right? Because that also gives us great insights for thinking of the next campaign. Was it pricing that they didn't like? Like, did we not cover a particular hospital which is close to their home? So delving into the reasons of non-conversion are as important as understanding the numbers of conversion.
So now moving away from the health insurance questions, I want to ask you, as someone who's worked across industries, has seen this massive shift, and we are still seeing things move so fast, especially because of the pandemic. Digitally, content has become such an important currency. What do you think the future of content marketing is?
That's a very interesting question, Natasha, and I'll give you my point of view on this, right? So I break this future into the now, the midterm future, and then the long-term future, right? The now of content marketing is the 3V framework that we've all been talking about, which is voice, vernacular, and video. I think businesses have started on the journey. Are we there yet? The answer is no. I think there's a lot more that needs to be done on voice, vernacular, and video. And I think in the near term future, that's what is going to give businesses the multiplier in terms of content marketing, if they get this 3V right, correct? Coming to the slightly medium term future, I think content is the only way content will exist, Natasha, will be hyper personalized. What you see will always be different from what I see. This one size fits all for content will completely go away. So that's what I think in the medium term. It will be highly personalized, highly contextual, and everything will be mobile first. I think making content for large screens is something that will be as alien as people sending telegrams. I mean, that's one analogy I can think of, right? So I think it will only be mobile content that will get created. And then let's move to the interesting part, which is the long-term future, right? And I think that is something that keeps me very excited as a marketer, because we don't even know what kind of content will exist then. And I'll give you an example. Voice skills as a piece of content didn't exist till a few years ago, right? And then your Alexas and Google Homes happened, and suddenly that exploded as a concept, correct? Podcasts. We had not heard of podcasts. At least I had not heard of it till about 4 or 5 years ago. It's as new as that, right? And look at how well podcasts are doing today, right? So we only need to question ourselves that what are the new device innovations that are happening, and what will be the right content to be delivered on that new device, correct? So let's think of one example that I find very interesting. When we will have Google Glasses, what kind of content will be needed to, what will we need to create for Google Glasses, right? It's a completely new device, correct? When people will have self-driving cars and you're just sitting there doing nothing, do you really need to be looking at your phone to consume content, or will a new mode or a new device be available for us to start consuming content, right? Something to think about. And as these new devices come into play, new content formats will come into play. And I think as marketers, we need to be constantly asking ourselves these questions so that we can be ahead of the curve rather than chasing the curve.
Yeah, something to think about, I think. But we are also still stuck with our good old blogs and 700-word blogs. That I hope that stays forever, and we still have text content to look forward to. That's it from me, Sneha. I think I have asked you whatever I wanted to ask, and I've got great clarity on how things work and how you kind of conduct your team as a marketer. So thank you so much for making the time to do this.
It's been a pleasure, Natasha. Thank you so much.
Perfect.